Here with me now to understand all of these developments is retired U.S. Navy JAG officer and former Pentagon official Don Brown. It's nice to see you, Don. Thank you for joining me. Tensions are rising in Yemen after these attacks. Do you believe the region is at risk for a major conflict, sort of like what the UN is warning? And do you think we could actually see the war start to expand?
Brian, thanks for having me. There are sort of two parts to that question. First off, I am concerned about the war expanding, which might be different from more of a major conflict. But first off, the Joint Defense Pact, or the so-called Mecca Joint Defense Pact that was signed just yesterday between Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, having a clause in it similar to the NATO Charter, Article 5, where an attack against one is an attack against all. If they stick to that, and the next time the Saudis get hit, that means the Turks could be coming in from one side, and Turkey, by the way, is a NATO member, and the Pakistanis from another side. There's a chance for it to be expanded that way. And then you touched on the Red Sea, and I've been keeping an eye on this all along. You know, we have enough problems right now with the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil traffic shipped through there, but another 9% of the oil traffic ships through this Bab el-Mandeb, which is the choke point between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and Houthi rebels right there in Yemen. And the issue is whether or not they're going to be able to put enough pressure on shipping, coming through that strategic choke point to shut it down. And if so, that would have an astronomical effect on oil prices. It's something to keep an eye on for sure, Brian.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the U.S. working to make this deal to get the Strait of Hormuz opened. Earlier today, I spoke with a retired top Navy commander. His name's Rich Kolko. He says a deal by itself is not enough to resolve what's happening here. Listen to this. I want to see if you agree.
Making sure rogue elements of the Republican Guard aren't doing any attacks. But the shipping companies, the insurance to go through the Strait of Hormuz right now is exorbitant. And they're unwilling to send their ships and their crews and their cargo through the strait, regardless of any agreement that's signed, because rogue elements of the Iranians could still be attacking the ships. Remember how easy it is to do there. A missile, artillery, a drone. So I don't believe Iran has complete control of their forces.
So is negotiating, Don, going to do the trick here? It just seems like we just keep negotiating, or do we need to get tougher with the strikes?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with Commander Kolko. I don't believe that there is coordination between the Revolutionary Guard that's controlling a lot of these attacks and the Iranian foreign minister who's been negotiating. You can't trust them. At maximum capacity, you have 750 to 1,000 tankers flowing through the Strait of Hormuz per day. This week, it was 85. Last week, 45. So it's come up a little bit. But there's going to have to be an increase in the military ferocity from the United States to bring these folks to the table. Nobody wants war, nobody wants prolonged war, but nobody wants Iran with a nuclear weapon. And the Iranians now are claiming that as a prerequisite to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to want to control it and be the recipient of a tax of some sort for shipping coming through. And that is a non-starter, in my opinion. I don't believe the president will go along with that. So we'll see how that plays out as well.
Bringing it back to this new pact that was announced between Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey, the one that you were talking about, does that help overall? I mean, is this just more pressure on Iran? Is that actually a good thing?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. It remains to be seen how the parties are going to treat that pact. You know, Saudi's been getting hit a lot. You know, they're right there on the Arabian Peninsula, right across the Gulf from Iran, and they've got a large coastline. Will the Turks and the Pakistanis really get involved? If they bring more military might to the table, that might put more pressure on the Revolutionary Guard, assuming you can negotiate rationally with them, and I think that's a big assumption. So it might help, but on the other hand, it might spread the geographic scope of the war. You know, what we don't want to see is the Red Sea shut down. We don't want to see Bab el-Mandeb shut down. We got to get the Persian Gulf reopened and the Strait of Hormuz especially reopened so we can get ships out of the Persian Gulf. I think it's too early to tell, but we do need to keep an eye on this really closely to see how it plays out, Brian.
Shifting a little bit, something here at home, the Senate voting to pass the Lindsey Graham Sanctioning Russia and Iran Act of 2026, but the bill still facing uncertainty in the House. If it's passed, how important would these sanctions be against both Iran and Russia? Do you think that that could make a difference?
Well, I think sanctions against Iran are going to be more effective than sanctions against Russia. Russia's got a lot of oil already. Iran's got to sell its oil. We'll have to see how that plays out as well. The Iranians, the Ukrainians have done one thing we could learn from in that war. They have used cheap drones to stifle a lot of Russian drone attacks, and we're using multi-million-dollar missiles shot from Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. We could learn to be a little more economical in our defense here, but I think that has a potential to certainly cripple the Iranians more so than the Russians, but we'll see how that plays out too.
We appreciate your perspective, former Pentagon official and retired U.S. Navy JAG officer Don Brown. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Brian.